We talked about the zero car earlier, and it's hard for me as being the tour announcer to not call that Shawn Turple.
Yeah, I was going to say it's almost Turple time, we used to say, and yeah, it is strange not to see him in that car. That's a great race team, and what a career that he had in this sport. And
Matt Vaughn is a good kid, great driver. I kind of joked with the team yesterday during practice. I asked Chad Henderson, I said, so how is it?
Welcome into Tim's Corner Live, episode number 4. Tim Terry, Denver Matchin, and Dylan Langel's back. Welcome
hey,
back,
folks. Hey, how are you? I'm great. I'm good.
Not bad. Well, yeah, we didn't have you last week. We had you for some sim racing stuff, though. Had you for Wednesday night for the Nashville Series. So welcome back. You ready to chat some racing tonight?
Yeah, we got a star-studded lineup tonight, ranging from 4 cylinders to a Pro Stock Tour legend here in the Maritimes. A little bit of everything mixed in tonight.
I think there's 10 championships-ish mixed between our 3 drivers here tonight. So
yeah,
excited to have Shawn Turple on in just a moment. Rob Poirier is going to join us, as well as Nick Doucette. We're going to talk a little bit of Lake Doucette Motor Speedway as well. So I'm excited for this one. Denver, last time we spoke was Thursday night during the TCM circuit breaker at Stafford. It's been a busy weekend. I think we're going to have a busy week coming up with announcements and all that fun stuff. Are you ready to go tonight?
I am pumped. I'm ready to rock and roll. This is going to be another good one. Really glad to have you back, Dylan. You can nice to have someone watching the socials for us. Remember, folks, be sure to comment. We're interactive, so lots of questions. Make Dylan earn his pay tonight. Send lots of questions in so we can keep Dylan busy.
Wait! You guys are getting paid for this?
That's what Paul was telling us. Paul Strickland Jr. is our producer tonight too, so want to say hello to Paul. He's been doing all our sim racing stuff, and glad to have him along for the ride. And I know there's a Winter Blast Enduro or a March Madness Enduro coming up at Sydney on the weekend. Now, I've been told you are not racing. Demo Dylan is not making an appearance this weekend, right? That's what I heard?
Well, Demo Dylan was asked to be a partner in a blindfold race. So Demo Dylan only drives the van, not sit in the passenger seat.
Oh, so you're not even driving. You're not even driving blindfolded. You're directing.
I would be the guider. I would be like the rally car. Okay, slight curve left up front. Now hammer the brakes this way. That would be my position. So
if you've seen Dylan Langell drive before in a demo, and you can go back to TCM and look at the highlights and the clips, it's not the worst thing Denver I've ever seen.
Well, the driving maybe not, but the tow truck incident after that was
that was like a 7 out of 10.
8.5.
There's room for improvement there.
Definitely.
Yeah, but my back hurt, I kind of got tapped into and I couldn't jump all the way and the tow truck was high up, and it's all for next year. I'll have to work on it this year.
The bar has been set for Miramichi, at least. Anybody that's up there trying to jump on a tow truck afterwards. So as Denver mentioned, we're live and interactive. Dylan is taking care of our social media tonight. So drop us a comment, whether you're watching us on the Tim's Corner page, Scotia Speed World, or the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Drop us a comment, a question for any of our guests, any rides for Dylan for, May 15, June 19, whatever demo you want to pick at Speedway Miramichi. He is available for some of those races.
Yep.
So fill his schedule up tonight. Let's do something.
Just make sure the timing belt and the serpent belt's all good, and, I don't have to drive like a grandma on the track.
And make sure the Atlantic Modified Tours in towns of Doug Magic can fix it if you need it.
That's right. See, funny enough, I just was hanging out with some friends and they asked me about that demo race. And they said, how did it go? Last time we saw you, it was the day before. And I had to show them the TCM video and explain why I was driving like an 85-year-old grandma on the track. And I said, well, I didn't have power steering and it was overheating. I had every excuse in the book, but it was a lot of fun. So I'm totally up to doing it again at Miramichi or even to Sydney if I get to drive the whole thing, maybe.
Well, there you go. So drop it in the comment if you have something. I'm sure Barry Richard is watching. So
Actually,
he is
might
he not?
be our sound engineer might be MIA tonight.
Okay. Well,
he might make an appearance, but he's MIA at the moment. I'd say
he'll be looking at the archive, I'm sure. So as long as we sound good, I think everything is good. But we've got a busy show, Dylan. So we'll send you off to social land. We'll bring in our first guest of the evening, and it is the driver of the Zero car for I don't know how many years. He can give us a number. The driver of the number 0, 3-time Maritime Pro Stock Tour champion. It's Shawn Turple, 14 wins on the tour, 100 and something top tens. The list goes on and on. Shawn, welcome into Tim's Corner Live.
Yeah, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Well, so far so good. How's the retirement and the? I don't want to say retirement because race car drivers never retire. But how's the slower life, I guess, been?
The hiatus.
I guess, yeah, that works.
Busy, camping and trying to keep the kids busy and busy at work. No, everything's going pretty good.
So last year, obviously, was the first year, as we saw at the top of the show, Matt Vaughn took over the Zero car.
Yep.
I guess we'll start with 2020. You got to Scotia Speed World to see the Jim Hallahan 250, but how was it? Obviously, with the pandemic, it was a different year all around, but how different was it not being in the race car for that shortened season?
Easier than I thought, actually. Missed the race day activities, but I don't miss that drive to Truro every day working on the car. It's a lot of time away from home. But it was great to get out to Scotia and see everybody and help Stevie and Matt and them out. Would have liked to have maybe made it to the PEI race if there had been one there. Enjoy going over there. We did a little camping over there, but overall, it was easier than I thought it was going to be away from the track.
So let's step back a couple of years to that decision. What prompted you to make that move to go from the race car to outside and try and move on to a couple of different things?
Just been doing it for a long time, and the fun was starting to come out of it a little bit. Performance was, we were still competitive, but just busy with family and wanted to be able to do some more different things with them. And there's a lot that goes into making a decision like that, and a family decision. Yeah.
We are live and interactive here tonight. If you have a question for Shawn Turple or a comment, be sure to drop it in the comment section on Facebook, whether you're watching us in the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, Scotia Speed World, or Tim's Corner Motorsports. Let's step back all the way. How did you get started in racing? Because I know you did a lot of hobby stock racing, moved into sportsman, eventually into the pro stock. So how did this all start for Shawn Turple?
My brother used to have a hobby stock, a Duke car. And so there was, one at the house for a few years, and always turning wrenches on a bicycle, or started helping him out a little bit. My dad was a big race fanatic. He used to drag race a little bit, and just got the bug. He bought me my first car and worked on it the whole time I had hobby stock cars, and just got hooked. Went to the Oxford 250 and stuff like that before I ever started racing with my mom and dad, and just had a real love for it, and just carried through it, and we had some success. But yeah, a lot of hobby stock races. Raced them for 7 years, I think. A lot of races, a lot of bent fenders, and great battles with Mark Wynot and just all the hobby stock legends. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the era of the Mark Wynot, the Larry Fisher, the Mark Wilson, Adina Wilson, Myers. What do you remember about those days and trading fenders with them and winning a couple of races and a couple of championships?
Just everything was so much more basic. You went and got springs out of the junkyard, or my biggest sponsor was probably Cy Harvey. You'd go up there and get a front clip off a Fairmont and a couple old springs that you would rate, and some new F32 tires and angle buff those the last couple of years we ran, and just a lot of fun racing with those guys. A little better camaraderie with the different competition level back then. It was a bit more fun than pro stock racing was. You could trade some paint pretty easily, and then you just slap some more paint on that week. It was no big deal. Yeah.
easier on a Friday night and a Sunday afternoon than it is on Saturday nights.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then you move up to the late model sportsman ranks and had some success there too, didn't you?
Yeah, lucky to buy a 1-year-old car from Stacy Clements, Randy Jollymore chassis, and found success with it early. Got a few pointers for some guys and turned as many practice laps as we could, and had great success with it. Had a lot of great sponsors be able to help me, and that makes a big difference. When you do get to the sportsman level, is having the financial backing to be able to do that. So, and sportsman was a lot of fun too. I remember racing a 50-lap sportsman race with Terry Roma, and we were side by side for the whole race, and it just it's still ingrained in my memory. Just good racing with him.
And that was not to get ahead of ourselves, but you got to drive the 38 car back a couple of times. What do you remember about that and being around the Roma brothers?
How I couldn't drive a sportsman car anymore when I got this car. I just felt so out of place. Just all those sportsman cars are so different in how people can gear up the brakes and stuff on them. And it had been a few years since I was in one, and just felt way in over my head. Not comfortable at all, but honored to be asked to drive his car, help Terry out. But didn't have much success. I don't know if we tore it up a little bit that night or something. His guys were all happy to see it on the track, so that was the main thing. But I didn't do it the justice that the car deserved or they deserved. Yeah.
And with that sportsman car that you had, you get to do some traveling, go up and down the road, got to go to Riverside, Speedway 660, everywhere in between, and try to get some racing in. What was that like to get your real first experience of doing some traveling?
Great. Going to Fredericton for Speed Weekend in 2003, my rookie year, so cool to try another track. And that track was so fast and so fun in the sportsman car. You could just drive it as hard as a bit more banking than Scotia there. And, we had great success. We almost won the first time we were up there. Probably should have won if I had kept my head a little bit cooler. And we went to Shediac that year. I don't know if we went to Antigonish my first sportsman year or not, but a real eye-opener getting around. I mean, we'd been to those tracks watching NASCAR races or pro stock races, but to race on them was pretty awesome.
Once again, we're live and interactive. If you have a question for Shawn, drop it in the comment section. Dylan, what do we have so far? How's chat doing?
Well, on the Tim's Corner Motorsports live page, if we bring up some questions, it may mess up the chronological order of going through your career, Shawn, but we'll start with our good buddy, Taylor Albert. He's wondering, how did you get your start in the Zero car?
Well, the Zero Frazier, I mean, it was the number for Frank Frazier, Scott Frazier Racing, and they approached me after Scott passed away, and they wanted to help out a young driver and give a guy an opportunity, a local guy, to get some seat time and maybe propel him to being able to race his own car or get the financing to run his own pro stock car. And that's exactly what happened for me. I was, very lucky.
Dylan, anything else that you can see on social?
Yeah, Tony Wright wrote here on Facebook, and I guess it's kind of connected to what you just said there, Shawn. He's asking, what was the emotion like when you got to drive the SFR car after Scott passed away?
Hard to believe. It's still hard to believe. He was my favorite racer, and met him a few times before his passing, and certainly talked to Frank Sr. a few more times than Scott, but just not too far down the road to their shop, but just my racing idol when I was growing up, and speechless to be asked to drive. I still remember Frank calling me on the phone, and or Frankie Jr. actually invited me up to the shop that night, and they asked me that, and it's very memorable.
And you had some success in that race car, obviously rookie season on the tour, and getting that first win, I think, at Riverside in 2006 when it reopened. Yeah. What do you take from those years behind the wheel of that SFR, that Zero car?
Lots of great memories, great people, great friends. Frankie, Curtis, Greg McCullough, people that put their whole life into racing, and as a group, with the legacy that all of them have, it's pretty hard to beat. And winning at Riverside, the grand reopening, It was huge. We kind of got that rookie season. We had a lot of success, didn't win a race, and then 2006 was everything that could go wrong did go wrong until that night. And it was all worth it. It was all worth it. That one win that year made the whole year by far. It was really cool.
You get to race on, it's the same racetrack, but both racetracks, we'll call it, at Riverside. What was the feeling like back, not only to win that race, but what was the feeling like rolling into the facility that first time, seeing the brand new asphalt and everything else that's around it?
Crazy from the guardrail. Only ran the 1 year previous there, a few races, and I sucked there. I could not get around that place at all. It was fast, but just so wore out. Like, you didn't run the bottom. You kind of ran in the middle of the track, prior to the repave. And then we went back there, and Frank just kept coaching me, drive it in harder. And we pretty near not getting a fight, but it was a tense couple days there when we were testing and practicing before the first race. And it just finally clicked, and they gave me a great race car to be able to work with and kept me fired up all night long. And we parked it in Victory Lane at the end of the night.
Now, we had Craig Slomwood on a couple of weeks ago, and he told us that Frank told him the story about how to run 660, ended up having to get in the car and teach him how to drive it in hard into the corner in turn 3 at 660. Is there any Frank Fraser stories that you can remember that at least we can tell on the air?
Oh, absolutely. Just that same thing, drive it in harder. And, teaching, when we came from sportsman cars in those days, brake bias and stuff. I mean, we just went to a brake bias adjuster probably the year before, but the Frasers always preached rear brake, and it makes such a difference. Now you take it for granted with the way everybody comes up through, but it was still a big learning curve then, even at 25 years of age, to, keep dialing rear brake into the car until it's on the verge of spinning out. And, didn't have that lesson taught to me until then, basically. And then once Frank got that beat into my head as well as Craig's head, kind of same deal, made all the difference in the world. But just, the stories that I've forgotten about Frank, there's a lot of them, but just a great guy. I talked to him there probably a month or so ago, and, living legend. Yeah, for sure.
Has he got you hooked into maybe getting into a vintage car yet?
No.
He's building a few of them from what I hear.
He's building quite a fleet of them up there. Every time I look, they're putting another cool body on somebody else's vintage car. Frank's always loved working on cars, and this fits just in perfectly with what he wants to do now to, gear up a couple cars for those guys. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So that transition year from the SFR car into Stevie's car, how did that come to be? Because didn't you run the first race in the SFR car that season and then move into the Zero car afterwards?
I did, yeah. Frank was kind of getting his second or 12th wind into a race car. Wild Mountain Blueberry kind of stepped up at the end of the previous year with a bunch of money, and they were really excited to be associated with Frank and Fraser Racing, and Frank put a new car together, and we were both going to run quite a bit, and it just worked out where Gordy Ryan didn't come back with Stevie and them, and maybe I wasn't going to be able to run the whole year financially with Frank and them, and he kind of pushed me that way and said, go talk to Stevie, that'd be a great opportunity for you. And that's what I did. Stevie had just bought R&D Performance, and didn't know him that well, knew who he was and stuff, and gave him a call, and sure enough, a week later, I was in the Dexter construction car.
And the rest is history, right?
Pretty crazy. Yeah, pretty crazy. I've been very fortunate to the right opportunities open up at the right times for good or bad reasons. But really blessed with the awesome equipment and awesome people I've been able to be around.
And we'll get to some of the moments in just a second. We'll go back to social for a moment. Dylan, who do you have on there? Is there anybody that's got anything to throw at Shawn here?
Yeah, Jordan Vino's throwing a question at you, Shawn. He wrote, now that you're retired, in air quotes, from full-time racing, any plans of running some sportsman races, perhaps?
No. There's some pretty cool sportsman cars out there. Maybe if Colby had a car, something that would feel more like a pro stock, then maybe, but you're just so hard to go back to for myself. I just feel terrible when I get back in the sportsman car, like I'm over driving it so bad. I wouldn't want to put everybody through that, honestly.
we don't see a whole lot of drivers making that transition, at least in Nova Scotia, because the Bandolero Legend Pro Stock kind of ladder has been the system. Jordan Vino is moving to Pro Stock this year part-time. What kind of, I don't want to say expertise or guidance or what have you can give him, because he's won a fair amount of sports and races here the last couple of years, but any tricks of the trade you might be able to give Jordan Vino or anybody else looking to make that leap?
I don't know. Jordan is certainly set up well to probably have some success with as many races as he's run at Petty and Antigonish for that matter. Seat time, especially at a place like Petty, is everything. And going into the Pro Stocks now with crate motors, it's an easier step, but it's still just such a high level. I believe he's got Slon White's old car, and I mean, Craig could make that thing go at Petty. So if he follows Matt and Craig's notes, he should have a good baseline to go off of. Same for all the tracks, really. And then it's just seat time and testing and getting everything out of the car you can.
Dylan, what else do we have on social?
Tony also wrote, Tony Wright says, would you try racing a NASCAR Pinty Series car if you ever got the opportunity? Now, it's kind of tough because the Pinty Series isn't racing at Riverside anymore, but was it ever offered to you? Because I know that John Fleming and Wayne Smith dabbled along with Donald Chisholm. Was that ever brought up to you?
It was honestly close. It was close one year. I can't remember what year it was. We were working on building a relationship with Donald and them, and then we had some hard run-ins on the track. And this was before the whole Regan Smith fiasco, but there was a year there, you know, half of one year, half of another year, where me and Donald had some run-ins on the track, and it kind of took away from what could have happened there. But you know, I know Whalen ran one a few years ago there, and Donald has his gear and stuff. At this point, I probably wouldn't drive one, but a few years ago, I definitely would have loved to step in the seat. Yeah.
Anything else on social, Dylan?
One more question here on your feed, Tim. Doug wrote, when's this number 72 Bando coming? I don't know if that's reference to one of your kids there, Shawn, maybe getting in the car.
I was just wondering. I was like, geez, I don't know who is this number 72. Oh, I don't.
While, right?
We talk about it once in a while. There's a guy that kind of offered us one of his cars if you want to try it out. Thomas has been on the 200 snowmobile this winter there and stuff. Who knows? Maybe later this summer, or maybe the year after, or maybe not at all. We'll just see what Thomas wants to do and see how things go. Yeah. So I'm no rush to get back to a racetrack on the pit side for that kind of thing. But if that's something he'd like to try, then I'd, probably put a car together for him.
You're enjoying the retirement life, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of stress being at a racetrack. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work that goes into it. And even on the Bando side of things, even to, do things half right so that he has a chance, or just to have fun, it's a big commitment. So yeah, life is busy.
And with Scotia adding a beginner division too, that kind of helps those youngsters that really come into the division and kind of molds them up to race against the older kids or the more experienced kids. Does that influence a decision at all, maybe down the road?
No, I haven't honestly watched too many Bando races at Scotia. See them when we're at Petty and places like that with the Pro Stocks, but don't make it to many Friday night shows at Halifax, or I haven't the past few years. But it certainly helps out if kids, young kids are starting, that they have their own group that they're out there with. I would think it would make it easier to begin to start, for sure. Yeah.
Once again, we're live and interactive. Drop us a comment, drop us a question down below on Facebook. And Denver, you've been quiet over there. What do you got? I see the wheels turning in your head. What do you got?
Well, Shawn, you kind of alluded to it just a second ago, but as we work through your career, we're about 08, 09, and that was when that Regan Smith incident occurred at the IWK 250. So do you want to take us back to that one and what just went on with that race?
Sure. The year previous, we had a quite banged up race car in the 250 and finished runner up to him when he won it. And then, we had a good car in 09, and at the end of the race, we were coming. I think we went by Kent Vincent, and then we get to Regan, and it was 15, 20 laps to go. He was giving me half a lane on the bottom, and I used up, more than a lane and used him up pretty good, more or less door slamming 2 or 3 corners in a row. And I think he was starting to back up at the time, and I was going ahead, and he didn't like it, and he right reared me into 3, and couldn't believe it. The fastest part of the track, you're going over the hump, the car is light and in the right rear, and as you're heading towards the wall, it's like, this is going to hurt. Get out of the car, and I still can't believe it. It was such a greasy move. Every time I still see him on TV, I'm like, I'll joke around if I'm up Stevie's or something to be like, oh, there's your buddy Stevie. We'd have a laugh, but yeah, it was certainly got a lot of people up in arms. I know, Stevie and Donald and, us and that whole team, we were out for a little while after that, not just that day, but just, on the other levels too. And it was the mess. Yeah, just really, really bad. Destroyed our race car for not for no reason, but not for a very good reason. Yeah.
That year, you did come back to win the championship.
We did. Yeah. We had another good car sitting at home that we were able to put together. I don't know if that was a points race that year, or whether it was just show points, perhaps. So it didn't hurt us on the finish of that race, if I'm correct. I may be wrong there, but yeah, it was my brother-in-law tells a story. He was in the beer garden, and he chucked a chicken nugget. He was pissed off, and it went right in the car at Regan. And there's a few funny memories of that, but it certainly wasn't funny being behind the wheel of the car when you get right reared at Antigonish. Just no need of it. It's not like I turned him or even put him in the wall. I just door slammed him a couple times on the way by, and but everybody has their bad days, and sometimes you react maybe some way you shouldn't have. So been there myself.
All the championships on the tour, whether they're a big lead going in or whether they're close going in, it just seems like they all accordion back together. We're going to talk about the third championship in a moment, but let's talk about the first one. What was it like going through those final couple of races and trying to set everything up for what would have been the first tour championship?
What year was that, Tim? Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there.
2009, I think.
Okay. Well, actually, 07, when I went to drive Stevie's car, we were leading the points going into the last race of the year, and I was racing not too smart coming up, early in the 200 at Scotia, and got tangled up with Kent Vincent and stuffed it in the backstretch wall, and Tucker won the championship that day, but we went in with like a 30-point lead that day, and unbelievable. And then 09, I think second or third last race, Fleming had a motor let go in PEI, perhaps, where he had been leading the points, and it passed it over to us. And then it was just be cautious and stay out of trouble. Learned my lesson a couple of years before that, but anything could happen. We've seen that 5 or 10 years later. It's stressful. Even if you try and keep it light. You show up at the track that last day, and you try and prepare everything on the car, but you never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
In your racing career, you've had a lot of big wins. What do you look back on as those big memorable moments from your pro stock career?
A lot of them. Geez. Pro stock career, definitely the Antigonish win, my first win. The first time we won in Fredericton, I think 2000, that might have been 2008, second race of the year. That was my favorite track for a lot of years, so it was big to get first pro stock win there. Mike Stevens Memorial Race in 2014, the end of the year, battling Jonathan Hicken. A couple internationals in Riverglade. Any of the Scotia Speed World wins, any of them. I mean, any pro stock win is so hard to get that they're all special in their own way, but probably the first one in Antigonish is probably the most special.
And you had a couple of photo finishes in your day too. I think 2 or 3 years ago at Riverside, and then that race with Wayne at 660.
Yeah.
What is it with you and close finishes?
I don't know. Just like to think that I never gave up behind the wheel, and just trying to get all I could out of it at the end. Yeah, just a lot of races. So, I mean, you're bound to have a few close finishes. Yeah.
That last championship, the last night at Scotia Speed World, probably one of the most bizarre championship nights we've ever been a part of. Looking back on it now, what was it like, trying to thrash that car back together to get out there, and then 10 laps to go. There's another bizarre incident that happens in the back straightaway. They get you a spot.
Who who would have thunk that the first thing would happen and then the second thing, but just yeah, the guys never gave up and it just worked out. I don't know, 1 point, a whole season's worth of running and it's decided by 1 point. Crazy, good group of guys never gave up and put my car back together and kept me, whatever it was, 15 laps down or something like that. But we got back out there and things worked out. Yeah, crazy.
That final race back at the end of 2019, I know it was a special race. You were running up front for most of it, and then an incident at the end. Walk us through that final night, because I know there was a lot of emotions. You didn't want to talk pre-race. What was the final night like behind the wheel of the Zero
car? Well, near the end there, I mean, Cole and Jarrett were running that race the same way they did the previous race at Scotia, I think, where they were beating the doors off each other. It was hard sitting in third place for most of the race. It was hard to believe, how they could run so hard side by side and not spin out, but then just how hard they were racing each other was hard to believe. And a couple late cautions there allowed me to close up, and my car got a little better at the end, and we got Jarrett a little bit loose there and snuck by him. And then going into the next turn, there was 3 of us all together, and around me and Jarrett went, and then you get a little hot. I door slammed Jarrett, but I mean that's just racing. And but leading up to the race, thought I'd be pretty good, and then just a mess at the track that day. I couldn't hardly look at anybody or talk to anybody. Kept sunglasses on. It was into racing for a long time, and it was pretty emotional day for me.
Now, Jordan kind of asked earlier about a sportsman car. The question's been asked about a Pinty Series race car. I'll ask you about a Pro Stock. If somebody offered you a Pro Stock ride for a night and said, "Here's a car, go race," would you take him up on it? Would you come out of that semi-retirement or whatever you want to call it to come out and race a car?
Not just to race a car. If somebody was in a situation where one of my friends, say Sloan White, or if Jonathan Hickam was still running, or one of the butchers, if they needed somebody to fill in and they were running for points, and it was, or a big race at Scotia or something like that, I would consider it then. But I wouldn't just hop in the seat for the sake of it. I wouldn't want to, I don't know, I'm just not that excited to get back in the seat. But if I knew it was in a good piece of equipment that I would be competitive in, or have a chance to be competitive in, then I would consider it. Yeah.
Dylan, what do we have for questions on social?
Lot piling in now, and thank you all for chiming in. Dan McGrath and Taylor have basically the same question, Shawn. Who was your favorite driver to race against in the Pro Stock Tour?
The last few years, Jonathan Hickam. Great battles with him. Clean racer, hard racer, kind of like myself, or that's the way I looked at it. Just you could run door handle to door handle with him pretty much. And but I mean, over the years, I liked racing with Craig. I liked racing with Cole, John Fleming. So many good drivers that you could run side by side with.
Dylan, what else do you got?
Now, on the flip side, Shawn, Greg Dow, the owner of Sydney Speedway, asks, who was the hardest driver to pass on the tour? So maybe a driver that you had some maybe rough goes with on the track. I mean, we heard Regan Smith already, but who's another driver who maybe didn't wreck you?
Probably through my whole career is a guy who started the same year as me. That would be Greg Proud. First couple of years that we were on the tour, he made his car pretty wide. I mean, I felt he always made his car pretty wide. Got along with those guys on and off, and then had some rows with them on and off through the years. We didn't cut each other any slack, and the big Dodge motor is hard to get by when it wants to be. You could kind of let it drift up a lane or two in the middle, and then if you get it hooked up off the straightaway, it made for a lot of frustrating nights trying to get by him. Yeah.
What else do you got, Dylan? I know it's lighting up. We've only got a couple of more moments left before we get Rob Poirier in here, but what do you got on social?
Well, Frankie Frazier just wrote, class act, love having Shawn in our car, wouldn't change a thing. So some nice words from Frankie Jr. Let's see here. A lot of them are just piling in here, which is great to see. Taylor also wrote, was there one guy on the tour you had a rivalry with, or one guy you always wanted to beat? I think you may have alluded to Greg Proud there.
Yeah, I mean, not so much a rivalry with Greg. He was just probably the guy I like to least race least against. For a lot of years, probably Craig Slonwhite, actually. We were good friends in sportsman racing and just always tried really hard to beat him. He was strong, especially at Scotia. And then later on, it was probably Cole. We were in equal equipment, equal cars, helped each other out, but nothing to get you up on the wheel. Like, you're driver against driver there. You're basically in the same car. So it really fueled my fire.
And you guys had that last race, your last win at Riverside, where there was the giant pileup on lap 1, but it came down to a photo finish between you and Cole. How was that for you for your, we'll put technical final career win, if you never get in the car again?
Yeah, no, it was crazy finish. The whole race was crazy. Right off the start, we started on the pole and got a good start. Something happened to Cole and wadded up the field. That's probably why I ended up in victory lane. I'm sure there was a couple of good cars. I think Dylan got hurt round up in that one, and a few other strong Antigonish guys kind of had a lull there at Antigonish for a few years where couldn't get on the podium, not consistently anyways. So, and then to win it, he was back by me, and then we powered by him coming out of 4 in the last lap. And yeah, that was pretty cool night.
Anything else you got, Dylan?
No, that's pretty much it for now. I mean, just a lot of people commenting that they loved watching you on the track, and pretty much the same questions of just, who did you like racing against, and what were your favorite wins? Maybe we didn't get to that. What was your favorite win of your career?
The Sportsman 200 in Fredericton in 2004. We walked out of there with a boatload of money, led like 190 of 200 laps. And that was definitely our coolest sportsman race. And then, like I say, probably the reopening at Riverside Speedway would be the top pro stock win for me.
There is a 200 lap sportsman race making its return to 660 this year, right?
Is there? That's cool. It'd be cool if they could get a bunch of cars from other tracks. It had prestige there for a couple of years, and the sportsman rules were pretty uniform then with Scotia. You could put headers on and maybe a light flywheel when you went there. Where now, I don't even know how the rules line up now, but they used to have such a strong car count when you went there. If you run good, you were beating some good cars, and yeah, cool deal.
I want to bring this thing full circle. Matt Vaughn is sitting in the race car now, and what do you think of the youngster from Bedford getting into that race car and carrying on the legacy essentially of what you built with the team?
Yeah, like the last year I raced there, I was short on help a little bit, and Matt's doesn't live too far from me, and I reached out and touched base and seen if he wanted to come give us a hand on the car. And I guess that's old news now, and he's in the car. I was actually up the shop last week for a night helping Matt and Stevie put a new body on the old car. So I'm a little bit excited for him to get out of that Taylor car and back into the 101 car. I mean, I could never get that Taylor car figured out myself. So he should have a more stable platform to go off of this year. That being said, it's stepping into pro stock is a big step. The competition level is, it's just tenfold from what sportsman is. Not to take anything away from sportsman drivers, but the competition with the equipment, the car levels are so high that you can't give up anything as a driver. So you really need laps and seat time at tracks. And hopefully Stevie can give him a good solid car to get some laps with this year and see how they make out. But I'm excited for them. Yeah, for sure.
And with COVID-19 and no bubble right now, it's kind of hard to predict what track time is going to be available before we really kick off this season. Shawn, this has been great catching up. Usually we ask at the end about, marketing partners and sponsors and crew and whatever else. But who do you have to thank at home for, being scaled back and, maybe looking forward to the future? What's next for Shawn Turple?
Next, well, I'm just finishing my putting a new basement floor down here, so next is a baseboard actually.
There you go.
But thank my wife Cassie, my family, Ledwidge Lumber, of course, my father-in-law Jim Ledwidge, my parents, the Frasers, Stevie, Cecil Vance, everybody who did everything for me in my racing career. Bubba, Colby Smith, Chad. I've had such good group of people around me. Greg McCullough, just Craig Langell, endless people that if you don't have people like that around you, you just can't do it. You can't have any success. Yeah, it's all thanks to them. And you, Tim. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, this has been a blast catching up. And you mentioned you don't get out to a whole lot of Friday night shows, but we're going to have to get you out to a Friday night show and co-host a race with me and get you back to that weekly racing series.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah. Sounds like fun.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks for joining us. It's been fun. We'll move on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up at some other point.
Sounds good. Thanks, Denver. Thanks, Dylan.
Shawn, before you go, Jordan Vino says with that 200-lap sportsman, he knows where a good sportsman car is.
No thanks. No thanks.
Well, I guess the offer's always open to you. That's Shawn Turple. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're gonna move on here and get ready for our next guest. And I think we got him on the line. Driver of the number 0 car from Irishtown, New Brunswick, Rob Poirier. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We got you loud and clear. Thanks for joining us tonight. We got champions on the show here tonight. We just came from 1-0 car to the next, and I know you got your trophies in behind you, but welcome
just
into the show.
couple.
There's a couple back there.
Yeah, a couple.
Yep. Let's talk about your racing career. We'll start at the start, I guess. How did you get started in racing?
Actually, I started in go-karts. I was working at a place, and a guy had bought himself a go-kart, didn't know what he was doing, tried it, didn't like it, and kind of gave me the opportunity to take the kart out. And I kind of enjoyed it. Got my own kart, was in go-kart racing for many years.
You've had some success there too, because I know when we did the Enduro a couple of years ago, you guys were bound to win that thing until Jeff Armstrong pulled a quick pit stop in front of you and you guys followed him out. But what do you take from the go-karting days? We see a lot of these kids now kind of going back to that go-kart step. The Owen Mars, the Danny Chisholms did it a couple of years ago. What do you take from the go-kart ranks, and what do you remember about that?
Well, obviously, the driving aspects, the handling aspects, it's all reflexes and everything else. On my part, I used to build the racing engines. I used to be into teching, setting up the go-karts, all this kind of stuff there has helped me in the mini stocks, how things handle, even in what I used to do as a mechanic, front end alignments, or so setting up these stock cars, knowing the angles, knowing what I'm looking for, all this kind of stuff, it certainly helps. And believe me, it was a long road to get that car to handle. Civics around the corner a whole lot better than the Acura does.
For those that are just joining us, we're joined by Rob Poirier, driver of the number 0, champion at Petty Raceway, champion at Speedway Miramichi. You've been into mini stocks now for a few years. When did you make that transition up to mini stocks?
Well, basically, what had happened as the go-kart thing went along there, it was more my son that was where I was spending most of my time. I was still racing some there, but as I'm getting bigger and there's a lot more weight there to haul around on a go-kart, was making it, a little more difficult and so on. But I had started with a job where I was traveling all across Canada, and I was having trouble making it back for some of his races, and he was starting to lose interest. So it came to the point where basically close to that age where girls and cars are coming in, he just basically wasn't racing go-karts anymore. So it left me with nothing. So there was quite a few years there that I was twiddling my thumbs, I guess. And I ran into Mike Weigel through work. And one weekend he said, listen, we've got this car that nobody, is driving. It was the number 4 car for the memorial that he had built. And he offered for me to drive it. I came out, practiced with it, blew it up in practice, so I didn't get to race it, but it gave me enough for the itch. And I basically bought a car that he had sitting in the backyard and spent basically one summer building it. I managed to get it out, race it right at the very end of the season, just to kind of try it. And you've seen what's happened since then.
The rest is history, right?
You got it.
We're live and interactive. If you have a question or a comment for Rob Poirier, drop it in the comment section and we'll get to it. Dylan, how's social doing right now?
Well, one question for you, Rob, and yeah, thanks for hopping on with us tonight. Heather Richard Brown Atkinson asks, any plans of moving up into a street stock or a sportsman anytime soon? Or are you just going to stick with the minis for the rest of it?
That's something that I've pondered quite a bit. Many years ago there, I did drive a sportsman. I'd had a chance to run a couple races in Tim Rogers' old sportsman car, which was a lot of fun and actually a lot different than what they're running now. I've thought about it. It's just so much more money, and I'm not sure if it's going to happen. I would love to try it. Just not sure if I'm going to make the move. We'll see.
Well, you did sit in Jordan Vino's sportsman car a couple of years ago at Speed Sport, if I remember correctly. You look pretty comfortable in there. So if we can find you a ride, you take it, right?
Oh, God, yes.
I think we found Richard Atkinson like 5 or 6 different cars last week. So let's see if we can try to help you out a little bit. But moving forward into the mini stock and winning the championships a couple of years ago, Petty Raceway we'll talk about first, because that's kind of the melting pot of drivers. And you get drivers from PEI coming down, you get some of the sharpshooters from Fredericton, and then you get some of the Honda guys, whether it's off the tour, whether it's from Halifax, come up and race. And some of them do the full schedule, some don't. And at that point, when you're racing, you have guys like Mike Weigel, J.R. Lawson, Mike Edwards, all those guys that are racing not only for race wins, but are racing for championships. What do you remember about that championship season at Petty?
Went into the season there with not really the intent of pushing real hard for the champion. It's kind of the attitude I take. Let's go out and race and see what happens. And as the year was progressing and I was always up there, you start looking at it a little harder and pushing for it. I remember going into the last race tied in first place and thinking very comfortable, I'm going to win this thing. That's kind of what I remember the most of there. It was there was no question that I was going to lose that season. And the race turned out just the way I wanted it to. I just had to make sure I finished in front of the number 10 every time, and that's what I did. There was, I'm not sure if you're aware of this there, my rookie year where I did win Rookie of the Year, I finished second in points that year. So there was almost a chance of me winning the championship that year also.
It seems like it doesn't matter where you go, that zero car is up in front. And I know we have a couple of highlights on the show with that speed weekend race. I think it was 16 or 17, where you were running up front with Ian Rasmussen and almost won that race up there too. They don't allow the Hondas, the Acuras, the import models every single week up there. So how special is it to go up there and run with Speed Weekend and those couple of other races and try to take away that victory? Because I know those big races that all the eyes are on.
I actually enjoy going up to the Fredericton track and running there. My car works very well there. The last time I went up, I had some Yeah, I could say rotten luck there, but yeah, it was a miserable weekend. Every other time I've been there, I've really enjoyed it. The majority of the guys there are good guys to race with. Good crowd up there. The way they pack the stands up there is it's just phenomenal. Really enjoy racing in front of a crowd like that. And the fact that my car runs so well there, from the very first time I put it on that track, it was like, wow, this thing's working well. So if they do have us up again, definitely I'll go. I've had, first time was I finished third, then I finished second, and then the third time I went up is when I won that race. And then the last time was a big mess. So let's just put it that way. Car didn't make it back the way it was looking before it actually started the race. But yeah, it was a long day. But
you mentioned racing with fans, and I kind of want to make that the pivot point, because you started the season off this year with a couple of wins with no fans in the grandstands in Miramichi. Well, there was a couple of fans there, just transitioned to yellow, and you were able to get a couple of fans in. But what was that like, kind of racing in an empty arena?
It was strange, to be honest. That first race in Miramichi, basically all you had was all the minis were allowed in to the pits. We raced, and then we packed up and left before they could bring in the next group to race. It was pretty strange. It was great that they at least put that together so we could race. But with the stands empty, not as enjoyable, but certainly, had some fun being able to get out there and at least run. And I had some success at the beginning of the year for sure.
And hopefully this yellow phase that we have brings us some more fans, and we can go racing, and it's somewhat normal in May, and we can only hope. But let's transition back to 2018. I think that was your mini stock championship in Miramichi. What do you remember about racing for a title on the North Shore with those guys?
In Miramichi, it's a little different. The track is very abrasive, a lot flatter. But I've been running there basically since I started. I enjoy it. Barry running the track, he's good to us and everything else. So as far as running there, there was certain individuals that were, obviously making it hard, but it was all happening in the same year that I basically took the championship there, the championship at Petty, won the race in Fredericton all in that same year. It was like, it was overwhelming, that I was doing that well. It fell apart the next year, but that year I certainly enjoyed it. Barry runs a good show down there in Miramichi. He tries very hard. So to win down there, there's people rooting for me down there, don't like to disappoint. I have that in Petty, and it's pretty exciting there to know that you've got some people in the stands, pulling for you. And I get that at both places.
Dylan Langell, what do we got on social? What's the word down there?
Well, the word is Drew McEachran, the Ironman. He has just wrote, any plans on running any mini stock tour races this summer? So with the East Coast mini stock tour making a few appearances in New Brunswick this summer, would you put your name on the entry list?
I've actually thought about maybe taking some of the races in. Not 100% sure. The rules are so different. I don't know if I would be competitive with them. I certainly like to go to Riverside. It's a track I've never been to that I think I would enjoy. And my car, even though might be at a disadvantage, still might do very well there. Here in Moncton or in New Brunswick, possibly. Actually, the schedule at Petty, I'm not sure it's solid or anything. It seems to be pretty light for the mini stocks, so there might be the odd occasion to be able to take advantage of joining them just to see.
Anything else, Dylan, that you're seeing on social?
Well, I just want to ask you, Rob, last year during the Mike Stevens weekend, it seemed like everybody who had a mini stock showed up on that Sunday to race. I think there was 35, 36 minis. How was that for you? You were towards the front of the field, but you were having to dip, dive, and dodge all these slower cars. I mean, it was the craziest thing to see from the announcer booth. What was it like for you behind the steering wheel?
It was pretty crazy. It wasn't a great weekend for me. That's the weekend there that my fuel filter fell apart and it ended up plugging off the injectors. I thought I had done worse damage to the car than that, but it ended up being a plugged injector. But as far as when I was running on the track and racing, it is fun to have that many cars out there, but you're also a little nervous because something very easily that can take you out, and it's happened to me. Big race, cars running well, and then just somebody there, something happens there, and you're involved. So it always makes you nervous, but I enjoy it, having all those many cars out there.
We chatted with Shawn about rivalries, and we mentioned the Mike Edwards, the JR Lawson, those guys that you run up front with, and might not necessarily be a rivalry, but it's good, clean competition with some of them. Any rivalries or any one of those drivers that you kind of circle on that entry list and say, hey, I want to be ahead of him because he's one of the best of the best?
Well, me and JR for sure. We actually get along very well. And yeah, I want to beat him. He is the one to beat right now. I was close last year, but I had rotten luck. Stupid things were happening to me last year. I'm actually, this year, it looks very promising. Found some other things every year. Through the winter, I seem to come up with something there to improve the car. They might be little things, but there's some things there. As far as Mike Edwards, again, I get along with very well. There was something in Fredericton there that came, not sure where it came from there, but that's all been resolved. As far as most of the guys, not an issue. The guys running up front get along. We try and keep it clean, and that's what makes it fun. We're not racing dirty. We're out there. We're clean with each other. You can trust the guy on, running beside you. All this kind of stuff there. It makes more enjoyable racing, and that's the thing there. If you got some guy out there that you got to worry about him taking you out just because, it's no fun. It takes all the fun out of it. We're not getting paid for this. Well, very little anyway.
The professional race car driver term is really loose when it comes to the payout at the end of the day, right?
You got it. Doesn't even cover what you spent.
No, exactly. Denver, you've seen Rob race a lot at Speedway, Miramichi, and around the province. What do you got for the champ?
Well, Robbie, you always seem to shine, particularly in the big races. I know in Miramichi, you had a streak at one point. You won like 2 or 3 or 4 50-lap races in a row. You're the last driver to beat JR Lawson head-to-head. Now, that might be back in 2017, but you were the last one to do it. You brought up your speed weekend wins. What is it about the big races that you just like to come out and shine in? Why do you have such a knack for those races?
That's a really good question, to be honest with you. I've never really thought of. I enjoy the big races. you're out there. I'm not nervous about them, for one. I like to come to the track, my car is ready. I'm not thrashing on my car, trying to do this and that right before the race. So I'm ready. When I come to the track, it's like, okay, I can relax and just wait for things to happen. So when it comes to this big race, it's the same thing. I'm ready when I arrive. And usually I feel my car is going to do well. Maybe that helps. I'm sure it does. It's also very enjoyable to be able to win those races, bragging rights, as it were. So that has something to do with it. Obviously there's a lot of luck involved. Again, racing with those guys up front that you can trust, it makes it so much easier to be able to get up to the front and race with them. But I've also had my bad luck on those too.
Yeah, we definitely saw that a couple times this year. Unfortunately, you mentioned you almost had JR a couple times, and I always think back to the 81 lap race when we had the bounty at Miramichi. I think it was after someone added to the pot $300 to beat him, and you were on his bumper. And then the rotten luck, like you mentioned, that just took you out of competition there. But I'm sure it will come. I know JR's got that target on his back, especially in Miramichi. You said he's the best right now, and he's won a lot of races. But what's it going to mean if it's you that finally, breaks through and is the first one to, dethrone JR?
Oh, it's going to mean a lot. And actually, that weekend, I think if I wouldn't have screwed up and it was me that screwed up, I could have beat him. Had the car to stay out front, and just made an error. It was stupid error, but it was that type of a year for me. Stupid little things. But definitely, I'm the one that wants to beat him. Very much so. We're good friends. We text each other a lot, talk on and off. And when we're at the track, obviously, we're talking. We get along well. There's no anger between us, whatsoever. I'm sure he enjoys beating me as much as I'm going to enjoy beating him, because this year I really feel I'm going to have something for him.
We'll swing back to social one more time. Dylan, what do you got on social? What do you see?
Well, Rob, we've been talking about some of the accomplishments that you've got. Just one quick question. Any bad wrecks in your career? You maybe alluded that maybe a slow car may have got in the way, but what about any hard wrecks or any close calls?
As far as hard wrecks, I've had two. I had the one the first year, actually, went straight into the wall coming out of number 4 at Petty Raceway. Lost a wheel and basically was airborne into the wall. I was walking very gingerly for a week. That was a hard hit. The other one was 2 years ago there when the 10 spun me into the wall coming out of number 2. That wasn't as hard physically on me, but as far as the car, about the same damage. Both times frame had to be straightened. The front of the car was off to the side, cracked the transmission mount right off. So the whole casing had to be welded up. There was basically, you could see inside and see the gears, amongst other things, so yeah, I've had a couple, but that one going into the wall that first year, that was a nasty hit.
Get the big one out of the way nice and early, right?
Yeah. You know, I was running in third place. Basically, all I had to do was cross the finish line for third, but instead was on the hook, and I was in the ambulance.
Dylan, is there anything else on social before we set Rob free for the night?
Yeah, one of your fellow competitors, Jason Pickles, wrote, enjoyed racing with Rob last summer at Petty. Please don't blow your motor in turn 3 and cover me with oil. It makes it hard to see through the windshield.
I am going to try my best not to blow up a motor this year. I am actually in the process of building a spare motor. So I'm going to have a spare ready to go. And I think by doing that, it's going to prevent me from blowing one up there because I'm going to have something ready. It's where I didn't have a motor ready that I would blow one up. So, there's been some issues. Last year with the transmission, I found out what was wrong with it. So hopefully no more mischiefs. But I tell him I'll do my very best to make sure that there's no more oil from my car on the track.
But that's like a Mario Kart thing where you drop some oil on the track, right? Maybe that was a plan.
No, not the plan at all. The only time I've ever dropped oil on the track and it didn't hurt me was the time in Shediac. There was a plug that came out and was dropping oil, and the engine was fine. But every other time, if there's oil on the track, from my car anyway, it's usually costly. And the scramble to put a motor together for the next race.
Well, at least if you have a spare now, that's going to help coming down the road. And if something happens like that, then I don't want to say a motor's an easy fix, but at least it's there if you need it, right?
Well, that's the whole thing there is, every time I've had a motor issue, I've had to scramble to put a motor together. I'm going to have one. It's not together yet, but I basically got all the pieces, and I'm started working on some of this stuff there now. I will have a spare built this year. Right now, I'm just waiting for my trailer to be a little bit more unfrozen so I can get the car out and get it into the garage. I've got a lot more room to work now. Instead of working in that little tiny thing that I had last year, or from the last years, to work in there, I've got room that I can work on the car. I'll have it ready. I'll have 2 motors for it. Should be a good year. I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully it's like that 2018 year, couple of championships, couple of big wins in your pocket for this year after all the bad luck that you had last year. I know you don't do this alone. Sponsors, marketing partners, anybody that helps you get to the racetrack, who makes it happen for the Zero team?
Well, as far as sponsors there, I've got Hayward's Healthy Home Solutions, the company I work for actually, that sells mini split heat pumps. Heat pumps and so on. Basically, since I put him on the car, he's with me every year. There was even the one year that he sponsored a race at Petty. Very helpful to have him. I've got Midas. They're very good to me. This year, it sounds like I might take a race in PEI, and in PEI they run a resonator or a muffler. I'm sure that's where I'm going to get it from there. When I tell him I need that, I'm sure it's going to be no problem. He's been very good to me. I've got Brookside Yacht Sales. He's actually a very good friend of mine, and he helps me out a lot. Prax Air, they're helpful with the gases, of course. As far as Ryan Signs, he's been with me since I race go-karts. Helps me, make the car look good. If I need a sign, I just need to call or a decal, I just need to call him up there and he's going to take care of me. Treats me very well. Great guy. He's a sign shop that's in Shediac. You know, all these people, they help, you know. I don't get big money from them. You know, a lot of the times, like I said, you know, Ryan Sign, he helps me with decals. It's not always money. Obviously, it'd be nice to put a couple more people on the car. But any help makes it a big help, you know, as far as that goes.
Well, this has been fun. Before we let you go, we got Nick Doucette coming on. He races at Lake Doucette Motor Speedway. Have you seen that racetrack before?
Where is that again?
That's down in Yarmouth. It's the track that goes uphill down into one, or up to 1 and 2 and down through 3 and 4. Have you seen that racetrack? Have you heard anything about it?
I've just heard about it. They won't let me go up. So, you know, as far as seeing it, no, I haven't seen it. Actually, I think it was the first year talked about going up there and then found out they wouldn't allow me to race. So basically, haven't been. But, you know, anything different sounds fun. You know.
They did start an import class last year, though, so maybe there is hope.
Oh, never know. I know. Like PEI is going to allow me to go. Actually, Ryan, me and Ryan, they're with the Toyota, are talking about going up for one race that they've got going on in April, I believe. He did the communication with them and asked if the two of us could go, and yeah, I'm in.
There you go. I think the only ones that are left on the bucket list for you would be Scotia and Sydney. So we're working down the map.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Riverside is the one I'd really like to run at. They had a race up there, and basically it was an invitational. I was packed up. I was ready to go. And the night before, somebody called me up and says, well, are you still going to go up and watch? And I said, what are you talking about? Well, they're only allowing Civics. It's like, oh, really? I was ready to jump in the truck in the morning and head out. I was on my way. So now I just like to go out because I hear it's a fast track, you know, and a lot of people think that my car would do quite well there. So I'd really like to see if it would.
I think it's Riverside. That's all that really needs to be said. It's the facility around here. This has been fun, Rob. Thank you very much. We'll catch up with you before the season starts, and if not, we'll see you in May when everything all gets going again. Thanks for this.
Not a problem, Larry. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. It's kind of a compliment, I think, to be invited on the show. So I really enjoyed coming on and answering questions, and definitely look forward to seeing you guys come racing season.
Well, we look forward to seeing you here in a couple of months. That's Rob Poirier, driver of the number 0 car from Irish Town. And we move from one 2-time champion to another 2-time champion. Nick Doucette has joined us now on the show from Lake Doucette Motor Speedway. Nick, welcome in. Rob had his trophies behind him. You have yours there too, I guess.
Yep. You can hear me well, can you?
You're loud and clear.
Awesome. How you doing?
So far, so good. How's your winter been? Because there wasn't a whole lot of champions crowned last year, but you happen to be one of them. You got that championship at Lake Doucette. So how's the winter been trying to get ready for another year?
It's been pretty quiet so far. Car was put in the garage after the final race there in September, and we really haven't touched it since. There's plan on possibly putting a new engine in it for this next season. But other than that, really, it's been kind of slow. I'm in my first year of college, and I'm also working part-time with my job at McDonald's. So with the race car stuff, it's been pretty quiet.
Now, we kind of chatted with Rob about his racing career, and he had a couple of years, and he really came on strong, and you've kind of been the same way with yours. Came on with your rookie year, ran really well in your rookie year, and then the last 2 years, you've come on with championships. So I guess the easiest thing is, how did you get yourself in a race car at Lake Doucette?
Well, getting into a race car at Lake Doucette was a struggle in a sense. I would go to the racetrack to watch since I was I don't know, probably 12 years old. We would go in the stands and watch, and I would have a blast just watching. And I always would say when I turned 16, I wanted to get into a race car, and I wanted to race. And I turned 16 in May of 2018, and the opportunity showed itself in June. Willard Hurlburt was selling one of his four cylinders, and we jumped right on and bought that. And I guess the rest is history.
There's a guy with a ton of experience, Wild Willie. How much of an influence has he been on your racing career?
He definitely was an influence, and what better race car to buy than from Willard Hurlburt with all of his experience. We I still remember the day when we went to go buy the race car. He was giving me all these tips, like don't drive, don't be aggressive, like don't push yourself, don't go right out of the gate thinking that you can be the best, I guess, in a sense. Take your time and learn and grow from that. So he was definitely a big influence.
Now, we talked about this racetrack. We've got a little bit of onboard footage from Dominic Hanna and what other driver to ride along with than Dom on this deal to kind of explain this racetrack. You talked like Scotia Speed World, Riverside International Speedway, Petty Raceway. You've got two, I don't want to say the same corners, but they're pretty close to being the same. How do you drive Lake Doucette Motor Speedway?
Well, that's actually a good question. And so far, Lake Doucette's the only racetrack I've raced at. So I can't compare it to any other racetrack around the Maritimes. But one story I do have was my very first day testing. Going to the racetrack, we got to the racetrack, and former track owner Gaston Comeau looked at me as I was strapping into the race car, and he said, "Now look there at turn one. Do not go into that corner full speed because you will not make it." Well, I tried to go as fast as I could. I spun out. Let's just say he was right and I was definitely wrong. It's a sharper corner than you think it is. And of course, and you're going uphill again, as you mentioned earlier, going up the front stretch into turn one. You're going uphill, and you kind of brake a little late, and you kind of diamond into the corner. And it's almost like two corners in one. That's how I describe it, I guess. It's like two corners in one. You take turn one, it kind of straightens itself out, and then you got to turn again for turn two, downhill the backstretch into turn three. Turns 3 and 4, it's much more banked, I find, than turns 1 and 2, and it's a lot sharper of a corner. And you kind of run that like a lane up off of the bottom, and you arc it down to get a good run off of turn 4.
It's definitely a unique racetrack, and it's something that it's a little ways away from everything else in the racing community that we have. But I always say it's one of the best kept secrets in maritime racing, where if you've never been to Lake Doucette, you've got to be there. I'm going to talk about the hospitality and the camaraderie in a second, because I think that's what makes you guys special as well. But Dylan Langell, what do we got on social? Do we got anything we can throw at the two-time champ?
Well, it seems like everyone's a little shy right now on Facebook, so don't be shy. We're an open book here, and Nick can answer a bunch of questions, because I'm always curious about Lake Doucette. Starting with the name, we've heard it say Doucette, Doucette. Do you say Doucette there, Nick?
Depends on where you're from, I guess. Our former track announcer, Pat Patton, he would always pronounce it Lake Doucette Motor Speedway. Me being French, I say Doucette because it's my last name. So I guess it really depends where you're from. There's no real way of saying it, I guess. It's I just always stick to Doucette because that's just my last name in it.
Yeah, my phone's going to light up here in a second.
I hope Brittany's always watching.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to say, because Brittany got her first experience with the East Coast Mini Stock Tour down there a couple of years ago, and she always tells me that it's Doucette and not Doucette. So
I agree, it's Doucette.
Denver, it's almost like the Don Goody, Don Gaudette. And we love Don on the show. Don's a personality, but when you're on PEI, it's Don Goody. When you're across the Northumberland Strait, it's Don Gaudette. I guess Denver's just a matter where you're from, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Nick, let's talk about those 2 championships, because obviously you come out of your rookie season, and I was doing the video a little bit earlier on. You had that the orange and the white car, and then it seems like you changed to the green and the gray and the black, and you just start racking up championships and race wins and the feature winner decals. And obviously this year was different than 2019, but let's talk about those 2 championships. What do you take from those 2 years?
Well, you mentioned the first paint scheme we had, which was the orange. I'm looking at a picture of it down here right now. The orange, the gray, and the black. We bought the car from Willard. It was completely orange, and because that was his colors, of course. But I wanted to do something quick, put a quick design on the car. And I love to do paint schemes on iRacing. I love to design paint schemes on iRacing. I'm not very creative. I stick mostly to replicas, but I thought of bringing some of my designing techniques, I guess you could say, onto the real car, which is what I did for my current paint scheme. But a funny story about my orange car, I'll try to get to it pretty quick, was I was painting it in the backyard one afternoon, and I was just finishing the black on the rear bumper, and I was getting ready to do the trunk, or I can't remember what I was getting ready to do, but I took out the pins that were holding the trunk together, and I had the paint can on the trunk. And as soon as I took out that second pin, I learned very quickly, or I remembered very quickly, that the trunk was going to fly open, and so didn't my paint can. The paint can went flying into my cockpit, so I had a big patch of black paint in my cockpit for the rest of that season, which I had to, unfortunately, I had to explain my stupidity to everyone when they asked me why I had a big patch of black in the cockpit. But no, to answer your question about the championships, the first year, the rookie year, I joined in halfway in the season in 2018. We had some mechanical failures that at the beginning, and a big thank you to my father, who spent the time in our garage from the Sunday that we brought the car home. I think that Monday he started taking apart the engine. Bought all the parts necessary to fix it up. The whole 2-week period between those 2 races, he got it fixed up. And that Saturday afternoon, right before the next race day, that following day on Sunday, around Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we fired the engine for the first time, and it's the same engine we've had in the car since. But ever since that, I guess, heading into the 2019 season was it was just a great season with new colors. I had sponsors on the car, which was very nice. All the sponsors actually were on my car for last year, and they will be back on the car hopefully for this year. And no, it was just awesome to go out there in the 2019 season and be competitive, race against my competitors, and I feel like there's this respect with all of the racers at the track in whatever class you're in, especially the 4-cylinders. There's this like respect, I guess, that goes around our class. Well, we all race each other very cleanly, and we're all, like, I guess, one big family in a sense. So to win the championship in 2019, and I guess my first full year was pretty awesome. And to come back this past year and do it again was just even better. I was happy winning one champion. I was happy winning one race. So to get the championship was just a lot better, and to get a second one was it meant a lot.
This year was different because of the pandemic. You're only allowed 250 people in the grandstands, but you guys were the first racetrack in Nova Scotia to open. To come back to the racetrack and to have the tickets, I think they were sold out in like 10 or 15 minutes. Angie had them sold out behind Staples. How cool was that to have a COVID sellout crowd and to get back onto the racetrack in a year that we weren't sure what was going to happen?
It definitely shows how loyal our fans are. Angie posted that she was going to be behind Staples and on like a Saturday morning, and people were lined up hours, but you would have thought it was like a Black Friday sale or something. There was lineups, a huge lineup lining up beside Staples, who wanted their tickets. And yeah, she was sold out in like 10 to 15 minutes, I believe. But it just shows how loyal our race fans are, and we appreciate that a lot. But it was definitely different not to see the stands packed, but you could still hear them and you could still see them.
It's different, and me and Dylan in Denver have had the conversation, and we've had it during the Maritime Short Track Summit too, where it's just a different feel down there. And I know Paul's got the Super Soaker clip that we played at the end of the season last year between you and Rochelle. Just talk about this camaraderie that you guys have down there. How cool is it to, this is the fun day, this is the free for all, but how cool is it to have this little, back and forth sort of lightheartedness that we don't really see at any other racetrack around here?
It's definitely fun. So Rochelle and James Urquhart, they have this ongoing, I don't want to call it a feud, but it's like brother and sister like relationship, I guess. It's been going on for as long as I've been there. It could be going on for much longer, but Rochelle said, I can't remember if it was Rochelle or James who said it, but they said that they were going to bring Super Soakers to the track on Fun Day, and people were going to get soaked. So I knowing that I usually park between them two, I knew I was going to get soaked. So I said, why not just partake in this and have fun myself? But it's definitely a pretty nice feeling to have that like camaraderie and that family type feeling, I guess, at the racetrack.
And every winner that won that day got soaked.
Yes.
I can tell you that because I was standing right beside Rochelle when she did it. She did all of it when they came down to get their checkered flag. But you mentioned the one thing, and that's family. Your family's really involved in this, from your father, from your mother, everybody that's around. How cool is it to have everybody around and being able to celebrate in Victory Lane with all these big wins?
It's a really nice feeling, and I'm about 99% sure they are downstairs right now listening to me on the show right now. But it's definitely a very nice feeling, and one memory, I guess, that will stick with me forever will be my very first heat race win, or my very first win at that, was actually that Sunday, that very first Sunday after we got the engine repaired. The very first heat race of the day, I went out and I won my heat race, and my mother was able to pass me the checkered flag, and that was a very nice feeling. My grandparents are another big support. They're very supportive of my racing career. They do a lot to help me out. They like to brag. They like to brag about me wherever they go. Especially if I'm with them every now and then, they'll say, do you follow racing? Well, this is my grandson, he likes to race. So it's embarrassing at times, but it's pretty neat at the same time to have them to be that support there for me.
I want to ask about moving up, because I know you sat yourself and Mark D'Entremont sportsman car last year or the year before. Is it in the cards eventually? I know you mentioned this year going with the mini stock, but is it in the cards eventually to make that move up to a V8 stock or a late model sportsman car?
Well, first of all, what a day that was. That was by far one of the most exciting days I think I've ever had. What a blast it was, really. Getting into something with so much power. And it was really the first time I'd driven anything rear wheel drive with that much power before. But and a big thank you goes out to Mark D'Entremont and George Eamon for making that possible, and for trusting me in their equipment. Pretty cool thing about that was the fact that I was running only like, I guess, half a second off of their best lap times. So that was pretty fun or pretty cool to know that I was doing good in a sense in my first time in that car. But for moving up, it's definitely something I want to do. There was talk about me hopefully going to race at Scotia this past year, but COVID happened and that kind of put a halt to that thought. But moving up to another class, I would definitely love to get into a V8 one day. That'll be probably far in the future, or unless opportunities find their way. Even same with a legend car. I would love to get into a legend car at some point. But for now, I think I'm just gonna do one more year in the 4 cylinders, and then we'll see how where that brings me.
Try to get a third championship, right?
Yes, definitely.
Dylan, what do we got on social? We're getting close to the end of the show. So if you're out there, we're live and interactive. Drop us a comment for Nick or a question or a comment, whatever you want. Dylan, what do we got on social?
Well, you guys took the questions there because David and Parker had basically the same question asking Nick if he had plans to move up to a V8 or a Sportsman. I've got a question for you, Nick. You just mentioned that you had plans to go to Scotia Speed World. Would that still be in the works if everything gets back to normal-ish? And what about Valley Raceway, the dirt track? That's not too far up the road from where you are on the 101, I believe.
Scotia is definitely still an option, I hope, depending on how everything looks for this year. And for the Valley dirt track, I would have to prepare my spare car or get another car to bring there, because I really would not feel too comfortable bringing my primary to the dirt track, unfortunately.
I think Dave Matthews summed it up nicely the first time he was at Valley. It's a fun experience. It's great to be there, but take something you don't have an emotional attachment to on the pavement to go and race there.
Yep.
Denver, what do you got? I know you're way up there in Miramichi, so you don't get to see a lot of Lake Doucette. I know you want to make the trip, but do you got anything for our two-time champ?
Well, I know you said Scotia, some other tracks. Is there any tracks outside of Nova Scotia that you'd look at running maybe down the road? Maybe if the funding was ever there, sponsors, whatnot?
If funding or sponsors was ever there, I would definitely be up for it. If sponsorship or funding can take me anywhere through the Maritimes or even farther than the Maritimes, I'm down for it. I love to race, and if there's ever a time that I can get into a race car at whatever track it is, I really love to get that opportunity.
I have one other question for you. Now, this is going way back, but would you have been at Lake Doucette, we'll call it, when the Atlantic Modified Tour made a trip there? I want to say that was probably 10, 15 years ago, but would you have been at the track that day?
I would not have, no. I would have been, if it was 10 years ago, I would have been 8 years old. If it was 15, I'd have been 3 years old. And I would most definitely have not been there at all at that point.
It's something to see, because I know there was talk of a Legends division starting up. The East Coast Mini Stock Tour has been there a couple of years. We just mentioned the import or the Honda division starting up. So really the racing has been growing there the last couple of years. Where do you see that racetrack, as a driver, where do you see that racetrack going in the next 5-10 years?
It is definitely growing. It is nice to see the Legends, I guess, making a return. They were back there in like 2006, I believe.
That was when you were like 2 years old, right?
4, but
something like that.
Yeah. It is nice to see them making a return. Hopefully it's good, and hopefully it is something that will be permanent. Because we love to see our track grow, and we want to see the track grow. It's and maybe hopefully even more classes can make a permanent stay here. I know we opened it up to the Civics last year. Hopefully they can become a permanent stay at our track, and even hosting more sportsman races.
Let's switch gears a little bit and go virtual. You mentioned iRacing a little bit earlier on. What have you been doing over the offseason in iRacing? Have you been running any leagues? Have you looked at Road to Pro? What Bristol Dirt's coming out tomorrow, brand new Super. I think there's a new Jumpy Trucks racetrack coming out. What have you been doing on iRacing?
iRacing, I've been mainly sticking to leagues. I've been running part of a league for about 4 years now. Back in the 2016, we mainly stuck to the K&N, I guess what is now the ARCA series cars on iRacing. Then we jumped to Gen 6s, the COTs, and now we've found a place with the 1987 cars, and those are a blast. The setups, the friendships that we have in the league, and like the family, I guess you could call it. It reminds me a lot of Lake Doucette. In fact, we're all there to have fun, and we're all friends. On and off the racetrack, but I haven't really been doing much. I'm focused mainly on college and on my job, but doing the couple odd races here and there, but nothing too much. Not Road to Pro. I've thought about that in the past, but not anymore.
Now, hopefully you don't get to use it, but there is a new damage model coming out for the 87 car tomorrow. So hopefully you don't get to use it, but at least it'll be there for those that need it. Let's talk about sponsorship on your race car. You mentioned the crew, the family that's around. Who makes it happen for you to get to the racetrack every week?
Well, I'm gonna feel awful if I forget someone, so I'm gonna try my best not to. I'm gonna start off with my sponsor and also my job, McDonald's. I couldn't ask for any better bosses. When I approached them about sponsorships, they were excited. They were definitely for it. They wanted to do it, and I only approached them about midway through the season this past year about sponsorship. And when the season ended, they said, please, like, let us know when the next season starts. We want to do like a full year sponsorship. So I got to thank them. East Coast Scaffolding, they were one of my first sponsors. And I hope they can make another return. They can come back for another year. I have Lady Venus Fisheries. I have L&J Swell Rider, which is a lobster boat ran by my family, actually. And let's see, who else? I know, and there's so many other people who have helped me make it to the track. I know Jason and Angela Bashara at Bashara's Garage. They sponsor our 4-cylinder class, and they were also they were kind enough to donate an engine to me when I blew my first engine. So it was nice of them to do that. And James Urquhart at Causeway Computers. We get many stickers and shirts and hats from him. So there's just and definitely my family for sure. I gotta thank them the most if they're the main reason why I get to race.
Now, before we let you go, we talked earlier in the show that Lake Doucette is the best kept secret in maritime racing. Give us one pitch. If somebody's out there watching and asking why should they make for some being a long haul to get to Lake Doucette to watch a race, why should they make the haul?
It's definitely exciting. It's worth the drive, just to see the different classes that do run there. They have fairly good car counts. I think we averaged about 16, 17 cars in our 4-cylinder class this past year. The V8 stock and V8 Sportsman, those are growing. Hopefully the Legends can attract more fans as well. And if the Civics do make a return, hopefully those can attract more cars and more fans as well. But it's definitely an experience, and you'll definitely be surprised with the layout of the racetrack.
Well, this has been fun catching up with you. Thank you for hopping on, and we'll chat with you down the road as the season gets a little bit closer.
All right, thanks, Tim.
That's Nick Doucette, driver of the number 51. And if you're watching us on our show, there's all our marketing partners on the screen. We want to thank them for being a part of our show. And this has been fun, boys. Jam-packed show. Lots to get covered. 3 guests. We're running out of time. Want to thank Paul Strickland Jr. for having us and being a part of this show. The Trans-Service Cup Series for Sim 500 is coming up in about just over a half hour on Vidane TV. So if you're watching us on TCM, hop over there. If you're watching us on Scotia Speed World Maritime Pro Stock Tour, thank you for joining us this evening. But Dylan, this has been fun. How social once again has been ablaze tonight.
Yeah, it's pretty neat to see the interaction, and looking forward to next Monday for another round. And I guess I'm looking forward to tomorrow and Wednesday because I got the hot tag from Mike James. He asked me to be part of the Martinsville race for the dirt race tomorrow. So he says there's pizza mixed in there, so I'm in.
Pizza. He hasn't told me anything about pizza, so
He'll hit you up. Don't worry.
Portly gentleman. I like my food. Denver. I don't know. Maybe pizza's in the cards for you too. What do you think of tonight's show? Shawn Turple, Rob Poirier, Nick Doucette, three big champions on the show. We got it all in within an hour and 40-ish minutes.
Yeah, and I know we could have went for so much longer with all 3 of the guests. You know, like you said, they're all champions in their own right, all multi-time champions. So some great conversations. It was really enjoyable to hear all the stories. And, Shawn Turple was a driver that I always admired and watched. So it'd be great to see him back behind the wheel, hopefully someday. I know he's enjoying his semi-retirement.
Just not in a sportsman car.
Not in a sportsman car, yeah. But hopefully look forward to seeing Rob back on the track in 2021. Another great talent, and maybe 2021 will be the year I get to make the trip down to the South Shore. We'll see, but definitely another fun episode, and lots of great guests tonight.
Yeah, we don't have a schedule finalized yet for TCM, but I've got that first race in June kind of circled on my calendar, not to spoil anything for those guys down in the South Shore. And we forgot to ask Nick, and it's one of those things when you go down to Lake Doucette, it's the racing, it's the hospitality, the camaraderie, but it's also the town of Yarmouth. We went down to me and Brittany Hoyt when we were down there, and it's been a stop every time that I go down as Rudders. Great food, awesome people. You make the tour around the South Shore. Tuscan Falls got some great beer down there too.
Mm-hmm.
Not to throw that out there, but it's always great. So make a trip down to Lake Doucette this year and make it a part of your schedule. And our schedule's coming out soon. We talked off air that I've got 2 schedules sitting on my desk waiting for approval. So maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, you're going to have 2 more schedules hit on timscorner.ca, schedules that aren't released yet. So that's going to be there. So that's going to be fun to watch. Dylan, you hit on it. We're going Bristol Dirt Racing tomorrow. And then we're going to go on Wednesday with the TCM Weekly iRacing Series. Depending what iRacing does with the Super Late model, could be the new Super Late model. Tomorrow with the DC Auto Double for the first of the 2 races, and it could be on Wednesday as well for the TCM Weekly iRacing Series. So excited to get back and doing some iRacing the next couple of days.
I'm very excited for this Dirt Bristol. I mean, no one knows what to expect with the Cup and the truck race coming up in a few weeks, and I've raced the Dirt Bristol on NASCAR Heat, but it's going to be nothing like with iRacing coming up tomorrow. So that's going to be pretty cool. And we're going to see who's good on the dirt. Do we know what car we're going to be racing?
As long as the iRacing truck comes with a fixed setup, and I'm assuming it is because the C-Fix should be going there this season, it's going to be the truck at Bristol. So we're going to have a few heat races, a couple of short heat races, a couple of short consies, and then probably a 50 to a 75 lap feature. And I'm sure the server is going to fill up. So that's going to begin at 9 Atlantic tomorrow. The DC Auto Double, want to thank Doug Critch. It starts at 7:30 Atlantic with the eastbound crew and a couple of Islanders, and I say Islanders, PEI drivers spread in there as well. Troy Burke, Ricky Miller, Chris Walsh is going to come and join us as well. So we're going to have a few of those mixed in. So double tomorrow night presented by DC Auto coming up on eastbounds, Facebook page TCM Vidane, all their partners as well. And then on Wednesday, it's the TCM Weekly iRacing Series. And then I believe TCM is going to take a little bit of a break on the sim racing side for a couple of days and come back on Monday with TCM Live. We have an open book next week so far. So if you want to see a guest on TCM Live, drop us a comment down below and let us know who you want to see on the air with us. And we'll do some more bench racing on Monday. This has been fun, boys. Thank you very much. Thank you to Paul Strickland Jr. from Vidane TV for being a part of this. That's going to do it. Jam-packed show. Thank you for joining us on episode 4. Until next time, my name is Tim Terry. Keep the hammer down. We'll see you at the track.